Today we're doing my most requested video, my Miraidon EX Surging Sparks deck profile. This is my first version, my first take on the list, and if you guys didn't know, Miraidon stonks are on the way up because there was a Miraidon mirror match for the Sacramento Regional Finals that just took place the other day. Just a reminder, I'll be covering the first place and second place list from the Sacramento Regionals with Miraidon EX. I'll be doing a breakdown of those on the channel later this week, so subscribe if you don't want to miss out on those videos. Huge shout out to the competitive sponsor of our channel, Comfy Hobbies. Make sure you guys buy your Pokemon cards from them using code SneakerTalk for 5% off. And of course, I'll leave this exact list in the description down below that you guys can copy and paste into Pokemon Trading Card Game Live and run some games with it. Starting things off, we have 2 copies of Miraidon EX. Miraidon is amazing. As you guys know, you have 220 HP, which is thick for a basic EX Pokemon. We have the ability Tandem Unit, which allows us to set up our board exactly how we want, grabbing out different lightning Pokemon from our deck, whether it be Raikou, Raichu, the Magnemite that we're going to evolve into Magneton later on, and the list goes on. We also have the attack Photon Blaster. For 3 energies, you do 220 damage, which is enough to one-shot a lot of Pokemon in the format, including basic regular Vs, EXs, and with the help of Zapdos, you can hit 230 to knock out stronger Pokemon like Roaring Moon EX. One of the best things Miraidon has going for it is its consistency. Being able to set up your board with the help of one basic Pokemon is very, very strong, and so we have a lot of balls in our deck. That way we can really play Miraidon turn 1 and set up exactly how we need to. Next up, we have one of the best Pokemon in the game. We got Raikou V. Raikou V is a staple for Miraidon, and once rotation hits next spring, we're going to be missing Raikou V a lot. So it's going to be hard to tell if Miraidon will still be viable. However, Miraidon does have a very strong ability, so we're going to see what kind of other support that lightning decks will get in the future. But right now, Raikou V is our main attacker in the deck. We have 1 copy, and you have the fleet-footed ability, which is very strong, being able to draw an extra card. And then you also have the lightning rod to attack, which does 20 base, and then 20 more for each of your benched and your opponent's benched Pokemon. So if both players have a full bench of 5 benched Pokemon each, your Raikou V will swing for 220 damage. You can also get some bonus damage with Raikou V if you have Area 0 Underdepths on the field and have a larger bench size. And sometimes your opponents might also include more Pokemon on their bench, buffing up the Raikou numbers. Raikou V also has 1 retreat cost, which is fantastic, and the downside is you only have 200 HP, so it is quite easy for some Pokemon to knock it out, particularly like Regidrago cloning a Rolling Iron or a Phantom Dive attack. Raikou V is phenomenal in this deck because of its cheap attack cost of 2 energies, being able to attach an energy per turn, and also hitting 1 off of an Electric Generator allows your Raikou V to be a very big threat. So you'll be able to basically get a turn 1 attack no matter what, going into your opponent going second. Ideally, you'll be knocking out a 2-price Pokemon with Raikou V, but our plan A, of course, is to set up Iron Hands EX, which is most likely going to be the go-to route because a lot of players are going to leave a 1-price Pokemon in the active. Next up, we have another V Pokemon in our arsenal. We got Luxray V. Luxray V is a tech inclusion, you could say. My personal choice to add some control elements to this deck. Fang Snipe is a very strong attack. For a double colorless attachment or 2 lightning energies, you do 30 damage. Accounting for weakness, you'll be able to also one-shot Pokemon like Hoothoot. If there is a Zapdos on the board, you can also knock out a Pidgey. While 30 damage isn't all that much, being able to delete a trainer card from your opponent's hand is very, very strong, especially if you combo that attack with something like a Judge or an Iono before the Luxray V goes in. Luxray V has 210 HP, so 10 HP more than the Raikou V, which does help it out in some instances. Another thing, we also have the other attack, Radiating Pulse. For double lightning and 1 colorless energy, you do 120 damage and you paralyze your opponent, meaning they can't attack or retreat on the next turn, which will allow you to set up for some big 2-hit KOs. Do keep in mind when you attack with Radiating Pulse, you do have to discard 2 energies from Luxray V. However, you can discard a single double turbo energy to fulfill that cost, meaning you can paralyze them and then attach another single lightning energy to go in for another Radiating Pulse. Paralysis is very strong in Pokemon, and if you wanted to continue the paralysis ideology in this deck, and you don't want the Luxray V, you could tech in a Tapu Koko EX. That can paralyze for 2 energy. However, the condition have to be met that your Pokemon had to have been knocked out on the previous turn. Luxray V doesn't care, it's going to paralyze regardless, and it is also a Seal Stone target, which is quite handy. And again, Fang Snipe is very, very strong against many decks. Of course, deleting a trainer of your choice and gaining hand knowledge is also very good. Next up, let's get to one of the main attackers in this deck. If you're not a believer of the Luxray V, you can always throw in a second Raikou V or a second Iron Hands. I cut the second Iron Hands to make room for this Luxray V. Now, Iron Hands is amazing. It allows you to take a bonus prize card if you knock them out with Amp You very much. 230 HP, which is very, very thick. Not a lot of Pokemon can one-shot that. If you are able to attack with this with a Bravery Charm as well, it's basically like a V-Star Pokemon. Iron Hands EX with 280 HP is a threat. Do keep in mind, you're not always going to want to use Amp You very much. You have to keep in mind how the prize race is going to go. And if you're, for example, playing against a Charizard, is it going to be worth knocking out a Pokemon with Amp You very much? Then they'll be guaranteed to have the return KO on an Iron Hands EX. Sometimes it's just worth hitting them with an Arm Press first before going in for an Amp You very much. It's all situational, so do keep that in mind. It's going to come with practice. So Kool-Aid Man can swing for 160 for double lightning and 1 colorless, or the harder attack to pull off is Amp You very much for 1 lightning and 3 colorless, or basically you you hit Generator for 2 and a DTE attachment to Iron Hands, and you can start Amp You very much, or start amping as quick as you can. There's a lot of games you're going to win by just Iron Hands EX taking 4 prizes, knocking out 2 single prize Pokemon, and then you clean up the game with a Raikou V or a Miraidon onto a 2 prize Pokemon. You're gonna at least have 1 copy of Iron Hands in your list. If you're not playing Iron Hands, don't even play Miraidon. Next up, we got Raichu V. Raichu V, our old friend, was very popular when we had Flappy in the deck because we could accelerate energies onto the board very easily with the Dynamotor ability. However, we have a new trick up our sleeves. We have Magneton and Magnemite, so we'll get to those cards later in the video. But Raichu V does allow you to do some big one-shot KOs by discarding energy cards on your side of the field. So 1 lightning is equal to 60 HP. If you're newer to the game, maybe you've been playing a lot of Raging Bolt where you discard 1 energy and it does 70. Well, Raichu does 1 energy and it does 60. Typically, your end game attack will be a Raichu V attacking a massive 2 prize Pokemon, whether it be a Regidrago V-Star, a Charizard EX, a Gardevoir EX, a lot of those big, bulky stage 2 Pokemon with over 300 HP. Next up, we got Bloodmoon Ursaluna EX, another staple in many Miraidon decks. It used to suck having this stranded in the active or just on the field as a boss's orders or counter catcher target. However, with the help of Latias EX, which I'll show you guys later in this deck, giving this Pokemon free retreat, you no longer have to worry about Bloodmoon Ursaluna getting stranded and stuck in the active position. It also is very helpful for defensive plays. It has 260 HP, which means it cannot be one-hit KO'd by a lot of Pokemon in the game, and has an amazing ability called Season Skill. This is basically Radiant Charizard, but as a colorless 2-prizer Pokemon. It says Blood Moon used by this Pokemon's costs 1 energy less for each prize card your opponent has taken. You'll typically be able to end your games with either attaching 1 energy or no energies at all to Bloodmoon Ursaluna and attacking a 2-prize Pokemon for 240 HP. A very common endgame play is you just Nest Ball or Ultra Ball out your Bloodmoon, bench it, switch into it, and then swing for knockout for 240 because your opponent has taken either 4 or 5 prize cards, meaning Bloodmoon doesn't need as many energies to attack. Next up, we got Zapdos. This is a single prize attacker, which also helps our lightning Pokemon do 10 additional damage. Sometimes you really have to hit a particular number, like 290 or 310 or 190, 210. Zapdos adds that extra 10 damage to your lightning Pokemon. Do keep in mind, you're also going to use this as an attacker, attacking things like Mimikyu, and it's also pretty handy to be able to attack a Lumineon V or a Squawkabilly with a 1-prize Pokemon like Zapdos, being able to hit it for weakness. Magnemite and Magneton. So, this is our new best friend in Miraidon. Magneton has the ability Overvolt Discharge, where you can go boom, you explode your Magneton, give your opponent a prize card, and then you can attach 3 lightning energies to your Pokemon in any way you want. This has amazing synergy with Pokemon like Iron Hands, which has a very hard to achieve attack cost in some scenarios. It also means that your Pokemon like Raichu V will instantly have additional 180 damage on the board that they can utilize. It also means that you can pull off extra paralysis plays, It means Luxray or Raikou V can attack very easily, and you also have a guaranteed 220 attack with Miraidon EX. Also keep in mind, because you are giving your opponent a prize card by using this ability, you might be able to set yourself up late game for a cool surprise Bloodmoon Ursaluna EX play. One thing that you might have to worry about, is you're giving up a prize card. However, most of the time, your opponent's prize map to defeat you is going to be 2-2-2, as in taking a 2-prizer, a 2-prizer, and a 2-prizer. So giving up a 1-prizer along the way does not really hurt you all that much. So just keep in mind, because you're also giving up a prize card, you might want to include a counter catcher in your list. Some lists do play counter catcher, which means if you do go first, say you tandem unit a Magnemite and then you evolve into your Magneton the second turn, then you'll be able to get a guaranteed, you could say, MP very much off, and then you can Arven for your counter catcher because you've given them a prize, so your Iron Hands can pop off. There's a lot of synergy for Magneton in any lightning type of deck. I am experimenting in my upcoming versions. I'll be showcasing on the channel, rocking this list with a 2-2 line. However, that does, make things a little different because we do have to now worry about the fact that we're giving up 2 prizes for free, in a sense, for these Magnetons. So if you're planning to explode Magneton, make sure you're getting your return on investment on this Pokemon. Our next support Pokemon is Pikachu EX. This Pokemon helps Miraidon so much. Not only is it replacing the Mewtwo EX that we had in our deck previously to fulfill the Area 0 Terra Pokemon requirement, but Pikachu EX has a 1 retreat cost. So Mewtwo had 2, which meant it was a Pokemon that would be targeted for getting boss or counter captured stalled. On top of that, it might have 200 HP, but the looks can be deceiving because the ability Resolute Heart is insanely strong. It says if this Pokemon has full HP and would be knocked out by the damage from an attack, it is not knocked out and their remaining HP is down to 10. Typically in the mirror match or any matchup, you do not want to leave a 2-prize Pokemon in the active, right? Because they're going to go 2-2-2. Because of Pikachu EX, you don't necessarily have to give them a 1-prize Zapdos or a Magnemite, for example. You can rest safely knowing your Pikachu EX will be able to tank a hit and you can retreat in your next turn and your Pikachu EX will be just fine. This is particularly important if you're going to be going first. You want to leave your Pikachu EX in the active if you can, so your opponent won't be able to take an easy free 2-prizer. Now do keep in mind this ability only works for damage from an attack. So if your opponent chooses to Frenzy Gouging it, which is an effect, then the Resolute Heart ability would not pop off. So thank you Pikachu for making another appearance in my life. I'll be getting a lot of use out of this Pika. Next up, we got Mew EX. This is a draw engine card with 3 retreat, which is very handy, and you can also steal your opponent's attacks. So this is a Pokemon that's going to be attacking their Mimikyus if they have a Mimikyu to try and stall you out, because double turbo energy and a lightning fulfills the triple energy attack requirement, and you're doing an attack of an effect, you don't have to worry about the -20 from the Mimikyu's Ghost Eye being copied. So you can one-shot Mimikyu with this, but you can also copy really strong attacks like Radiant Greninja's Moonlight Shuriken, and the list goes on. Being able to copy your opponent's attacks is very good. And of course, when you go down to a low hand size, which happens very often, you'll want to use Restart. Restart is really good. The ability is busted. Next up, we got we got Fezandipiti EX, our other draw engine support Pokemon in the list. However, this is a conditional draw engine. You're going to need a Pokemon on your side of the field to get knocked out on the previous turn in order to activate Fezandipiti. Flip the script lets you draw 3 additional cards if your Pokemon was knocked out on the prior turn. There's a lot of times where you have like a 0 or 1 card hand at the start of your turn. You're going to use Mew to draw 1 to 3 cards, Fezandipiti for another 3, and then Raikou Fleet-Footed for another 1. So if you had a 0 card hand besides your draw for turn, you can draw like 7 new cards, which is pretty strong. So yeah, getting Iono to like a low hand size isn't as big of a deal anymore because you got these annoying cards. Next up, our other draw engine card is Squawkabilly EX. This is only useful for turn 1. However, it has a really strong attack called Motivate. So we'll talk about that later. But 160 HP on an EX. It is one of the weakest EX Pokemon in the game, or 2-prize Pokemon in the game. The other Pokemon weak like this is Tatsugiri EX. So this is a double-edged sword Pokemon because it is a 2-prize Pokemon that is super weak. It's very easy for your opponent to knock it out and take 2 prizes. However, the payoff of the Squawk and Seize ability really makes it worth using in this deck. You get to discard your entire hand and draw a whole new hand of 6 cards. It's kind of like a Professor's Research, but it's an ability that only works on your first turn, so you can use it on your first turn going first, and if you were going second, for example, say you use this ability with a low card hand, then you draw into an Arven or another research, for example, or another good supporter, you basically got to use 2 abilities of supporters on your turn, which is busted. You also have the attack Motivate here for 1 lightning, you do 20 damage, and you get to accelerate 2 basic energies from your discard pile to one of your benched Pokemon. So you can help set up a Amp You Very Much play, a Raichu play, or whatever play you want to make. Squawkabilly can help sponsor that play. One thing too is that this deck is very, very aggressive, and so you're setting up your attackers very fast. If you're setting up your Raikous and your Miraidons and your Iron Hands to be a huge threat, it won't even matter by the time they want to attack a Squawkabilly, because they should be attacking the threat on the board instead of these free kind of prize cards. As well, when Area 0 Underdepths does get removed from play, this is the first card that's usually going to be discarded to fulfill your requirement of having to go back down to a 5 bench setting. Next up, we got Lumineon V, another card that you're going to quickly discard after Area 0 does get discarded from play sometimes. Lumineon V is a support Pokemon. You rarely start it because we have so many other basic Pokemon, and you just got to bench it from your hand, and you get to look for any supporter card in your deck and add it to your hand. So very good at grabbing exactly what you need when you need it with the help of Ultra Ball, because Ultra Ball is basically a Lumineon V, and of course Ultra Ball is a fantastic item card which will help you thin out your hand so your Muse restart ability can draw additional cards. Next up, the other water Pokemon in our deck, we got Iron Bundle, or Ice type I should say, but we got Iron Bundle. This is a single prize Pokemon which you can also search out with Nest Ball and Ultra Ball, and it gust your opponent's active Pokemon out into the bench, and they get to pick which Pokemon is going to be into the active. So there's a lot of times where your opponent might leave you with a 1 prize or a 2 prize Pokemon, and you want to hit something else. Well, Iron Bundle will help get you there. So if your opponent only has a bunch of single prize Pokemon on the bench, you want to amp you very much that, then you can do so with the help of Iron Bundle. Last but not least, another new staple for every Miraidon deck, we got Latias EX. Latias EX allows all of your basic Pokemon to have no retreat cost. That is insane. So this means it is a Nest Ball or Ultra Ball target that can give you a free retreat. Typically, you'd have to be using cards like Switch Cart or Escape Board to get those Pokemon to retreat for free or with more ease, but Latias EX just helps you get you there, and you have, of course, you're going to have Area 0 out most of the time, meaning you're going to have the bench space available for Latias EX. Do keep in mind, a lot of Miraidon decks are only playing Latias as our option for free retreat for the most part, and a lot of decks have cut out Prime Catcher as well. So this leaves us very susceptible to stall, like Snorlax stall decks, or decks that will want to try and keep you in the active. Maybe you're playing against a Lugia and they have the Water Pond Mask Ogerpon and they attack you with a Sob attack, then you're going to be kind of cooked because Latias won't be able to retreat with those kind of attacks that lock you into the active. So the overall power level of our deck increases, but it does, you do have to remember that there are going to be control decks out there that might become more and more popular if Miraidon sees more and more success, because we're skimping out on the switching cards in the deck now. On to our item cards. This is where things get spicy. We are no longer playing the iconic Prime Catcher. We have evolved into Secret Box. Secret Box helps so much with early game consistency, being able to discard 3 cards from your hand to then grab a Stadium, Supporter, Item, and Tool. Those are like the 4 pieces of Exodia. The 5th piece would just probably be the Pokemon. If it could let you get a Pokemon as well, like Miraidon, insanely, like best card in the game, hands down. One of the best cards at least. Just do keep in mind you have to discard 3 cards from your hand. You have to pay the price to play the Secret Box, but it is so good. It is so good. So yeah, there's a lot of times where you're able to grab like a ball card to then grab your Miraidon or your Latias or whatever you need. Or if you don't need to grab your ball card, maybe you're just going to grab an Electric Generator, which is also very strong. It's also a really handy way to search out the Area 0 Stadium, because we don't have another way to search it out. We're not playing Colress's Tenacity. And then of course being able to grab a Tool is great too. If you're playing Arven, which is a good chance you are with Secret Box, you can also go Arven for Secret Box, or Secret Box for Arven. Basically, you'll be able to get 2 tools out of your deck on the same turn. So Secret Box is the not-so-secret weapon inside of Miraidon that really makes the power level go up. Next up, we got 4 copies of Electric Generator. 4 is the magic number. You're going to want to have 4. no less. It's really busted. It's our only form of energy acceleration in the deck other than with the help of Magneton. And so yeah, these generators, you want to make sure they hit, and the best way to make them hit is by sequencing your turns as optimally as you can and thinning out useless cards as often as you can. That way your generators have higher chances of seeing lightning energies in your deck. With the help of Pokemon cards like Secret Box in our deck and Area 0 allowing us to flood our deck with a lot of Pokemon, there's a good chance your electric generators are going to have some strong odds at hitting lightning energies with all the thinning you're going to do on your first or earlier turns in the game. Now do keep in mind, the second you see an electric generator, you don't always have to play it right away. Sometimes you want to keep it in your hand for late game plays so you can do these big surprise attacks where you get a attachment and a generator off on the same turn, but most cases you're going to want to play your generator as quick as you can. Just be mindful that, you know, maybe you didn't do enough thinning on your particular turn, or maybe you know you don't need to play a generator this turn and you can increase the odds of your lightning energies hitting even stronger the next turn by doing additional thinning with something like Tandem Unit, or maybe you know you're going to play an Arven to thin out 2 non-lightning cards or lightning energies from your deck, then you're going to hold off on playing your generator. And pro tip, learn from my mistakes, always use your electric generators before you use a card like Pokestop if it's on the field, and before you Fleetfoot most of the time. However, say you do need to just draw into like a support card, a supporter from your Fleet-footed, then you're going to want to play electric generator first so you can thin out those lightning energies so your Raikou has a stronger chance at drawing into a supporter or another useful card off of Fleet-footed. So there's different ways you're going to want to sequence your turns. Of course, it's all going to be situational. A lot of the times you're going to live and die by the electric generator, so you want to be playing as optimally as you can to make sure these hit. Some other things to keep in mind is if you do want to play a Super Rod in your deck, it is useful to save your electric generators for later in the game, knowing that you'll be playing a Super Rod to put 3 lightning energies back into your deck, increasing those odds of the late game generators cooking. Next up for consistency cards, we have 3 Ultra Ball. Ultra Ball is amazing. Although we don't really play much evolution Pokemon, being able to search out your Magneton when you need it is very handy, along with other non-lightning basic Pokemon like Lumineon, like Bloodmoon Ursaluna, like Iron Bundle, because Miraidon only works for lightning Pokemon. Keep in mind, Ultra Ball will help you thin out cards out of your deck, so if you can just take out the Pokemon with the help of Ultra Ball and then draw additional cards with the help of Mew's restart ability. Next up, we got our other balls. We got Nest Ball. Nest Ball at 4 copies because you really want to see that turn 1 Miraidon. And if you have Miraidon, you really want to see that turn 1 Squawk, or you really want to see that turn 1 Latias. Nest Ball helps get you there and is a critical card to the consistency of Miraidon and being able to have such strong starts. Again, one of the best assets that Miraidon has is its consistency. It being a deck that revolves around a lot of basic Pokemon means that you don't have to have so many combo pieces available. So Nest Ball is going to be that card that gets you those simple basic Pokemon that help get you the win. So 4 copies of Nest Ball. And of course, we do have so many one-off Pokemon in our deck, so we do need to play a Hisuian Heavy Ball in the list. That way we can grab them out of the prize cards if they do get stuck in there. Also, price checking is a really important skill in the Pokemon trading card game, so if you can conserve your mental energy by playing an early Hisuian Heavy Ball, it is going to, you know, allow you to think straighter, think with more brain power left in the tank, knowing exactly what's in your prize cards. Next up, the last item card is also another one-off copy. We got Night Stretcher. Night Stretcher is really handy because it allows you to grab an energy or a Pokemon. Usually in this case it's going to be a Pokemon from your discard pile and bring it right into your hand, and so you can just use it right away. So if you wanted to reuse a card like Lumineon or an Iron Bundle or a Bloodmoon Ursaluna, or maybe your Raichu or an important attacker got knocked out earlier in the game, Night Stretcher will allow you to recover that Pokemon. Now if you don't want to play Night Stretcher, you're probably going to be playing Super Rod, which is also very good. There's different use cases for both. However, in this particular version of the deck, we are just running the 1 Night Stretcher. Next up, let's get to the tools. We have 3 different tools in our list. We have 1 Rescue Board, which will allow your Pokemon of 1 retreat to have a free retreat, which is very good. Typically, you don't need to have this in the list. You might want to take it out because we do of course have Latias, but sometimes Latias isn't there or you don't have the bench space available. So being able to Arven for this or Secret Box for it is very handy, and you can always slap it onto a Raikou and give that Raikou an additional free retreat, or get an extra fleet-footed available because it's going to have free retreat from Rescue Board. Next up, we got Bravery Charm, the Golden Chicken Nugget, increasing your basic Pokemon by 50 HP. Very, very strong, a critical card to have in your deck. Some decks will even run 2, but at the moment, we're rocking the 1 Golden Chicken Nugget. And then last but not least, we got Forest Seal Stone, another card that some players will run 2 of for absolute maximum consistency. However, we're just rocking the 1 for this particular build. Forest Seal Stone is going to allow you to grab any card in your deck as long as it's attached to a V Pokemon. So yeah, it's going to go onto your Raichu, your Raikou, your Luxray, or even a Lumineon V. And it's going to be that card that gives you that last piece of the puzzle, that last combo piece you need to pull off a big combo play. Now do keep in mind, because we only have 1, if your opponent is going to play a Lost Vacuum, or if you are aware your opponent might have a Lost Vacuum, do keep that in mind. You might not want to attach it to your Pokemon until it's time to use it. And of course, the deck is stronger and stronger the more you can hold on to your V-Star abilities. So if you have to use your Seal Stone early, you know, don't feel bad. It's going to happen sometimes, but being able to, especially late game, grab exactly what you need is insanely busted. So yeah, Forest Seal Stone at 1 copy. Next up, we have 2 copies of Area 0 Underdepths. The only other stadium you might want to consider playing in this deck is Academy at Night. And way back in the day, before we had Latias, we had Beach Court for a free retreat for our basically 1 less retreat cost for a lot of our Pokemon. And a lot of them were single retreat costs. But yeah, Area 0 Underdepths, this is the stadium of choice for Miraidon these days. We got 2 copies, and you need to have your Pikachu on the board to fulfill that Terra Pokemon requirement. So very commonly, you're going to use your Miraidon EX to grab your Pikachu and potentially another Miraidon, so you can continue the tandem unit train and just fill up your bench with all these Pokemon. And then, of course, you can have 3 additional bench slots, which means 60 additional damage that can be done with the help or with your Raikou V. So 2 Area 0 Underdepths, and of course, do keep in mind, if the stadium does get removed or your Pikachu EX gets removed, and you can't fulfill the Terra requirement for Area 0, your bench goes down to 5. And so does your opponent if they don't have a Terra Pokemon on the board. So this is where it's super handy to have that Secret Box turn 1, or play Area 0 and then have Squawkabilly as a card you play as well. Because when the second your opponent is going to bump that stadium, your stadium on the field, then you can just get rid of your Squawk, your liabilities. So the weaknesses, you know, of having 2 prize liabilities on the field are mitigated the second your opponent plays a new stadium or hits you with a Lost Vacuum. You don't have those drawbacks anymore. For energy cards, we're rocking 15 Lightning Energy and 1 Double Turbo Energy. Of course, the DTE synergizes very well with Luxray V, with Iron Hands EX, with Bloodmoon Ursaluna if you have to get in that scenario sometimes, and also Mew EX. Also keep in mind, DTE counts as 2 energies for your retreat cost as well. So if you don't have a Latias out, but you need to retreat something like a Zapdos that's stranded in the active, a Double Turbo Energy will act as a pseudo switch. Next up, let's get to the supporter cards. We are rocking 3 copies of Arven. Arven is one of the best supporters in the game. A lot of decks choose to run multiple copies of it. Some Miraidon players will have 4, and I totally get that. We are rocking 3 here because we wanted to have some more utility outside of Arven in our deck, which we're going to get to later on. But we got 3 Arven. It lets you grab 1 item and 1 tool from your deck, and this deck runs on items and tools, so Arven will help get you those pieces you need to have a pop-off turn. Next up, we got 3 copies of Boss's Orders. Being able to gust and attack exactly what you want is also very, very critical in the Pokemon trading card game, so Boss's Orders at 3 helps get you there. Now do keep in mind, we no longer play Prime Catcher, and we're not running Counter Catcher at the particular time, so Boss's Orders and our Iron Bundle are the only ways to attack particular Pokemon when we want. Next up, we got 1 copy of Judge and 1 copy of Iono. The early game Judge is very strong if you do pair it with a Luxray V. An early game Judge can also really help brick your opponent and, you know, give them unplayable hands, which is ideal in a lot of matchups, especially if they do something like an instant charge with the Rotom V on their first turn. But if you're not a believer of Judge, we also have the Iono, and Iono is another really strong supporter as well. If you can conserve your Iono for later into the game, that's better, because if you can Iono them to 1 or 2 or 3, ideally Iono to 1 or 2, your Ionos will be even more lethal. But sometimes you have to play Iono early on, and that's not that big of a deal because you're going to see 5 to 6 new cards and Iono will, you know, it's almost like a research. You know, you get to see a lot of cards. However, you don't have the drawback of having to discard, and sometimes you might want to discard cards. So, you know, the Judge and Ionos can be flexible cards. You could put in a 4th Arven, you could play Research, you could play no Judge, you could play 2 Ionos, but I really like the synergy that Judge has with the help of Luxray V as well. So the last 2 supporters are Iono and Judge. So the main game plan is we attack with Raikou V into a 2 prize Pokemon to kick things off, or a very important Pokemon on your opponent's side of the field and really set them back. Getting a knockout early on with Raikou V is very easy to do and can really be devastating for your opponent's setup. Sometimes Raikou V is not going to hit those numbers that we need to hit. Miraidon can help get you there for that 1 more additional energy for that guaranteed 220, so you can really do some big damage onto Pokemon like Regidrago V or any other, you know, big EX or V Pokemon. And of course, the main plan, if we're not taking a 2 prize knockout with these 2 prize Pokemon, is we're attacking a 1 prize Pokemon, which is much weaker, and taking 2 prizes from that instead with Iron Hands EX. Then we're going to be taking our next 2 prizes again with the help of Raikou, Iron Hands, or Miraidon, with just, you know, whatever is available at the given moment. And then our late game play is going to be a big 1-hit KO on a 2 prize Pokemon, whether it be with a Raichu V or a Bloodmoon Ursaluna, or it could even be again with the Raikou, Hands, or Miraidon. Sometimes you might need to weave in a Luxray V attack if, you know, things don't always go as planned, or sometimes you need to go for a 2 prize KO or a two hit combo. Maybe you're attacking into a Charizard EX. You want to paralyze it first and then clean it up with a Raikou V. Sometimes the energies aren't on board with the Raichu V or the help of the Magneton earlier. With that said, if you guys found this video helpful at all, I would really appreciate if you hit that like button down below. The goal is to hit 500 likes, and you can click on screen to watch some Pokemon tournament vlogs, click on screen to watch gameplay of me with Miraidon EX, and of course I'll leave this exact list in the description down below that you guys can copy and paste into Pokemon Trading Card Game Live and run some games with it.